TreeCast.
Hold on to your butts.
We are changing the course of history as we see it. That is what Wesley demands.
Now this affects Iris. Iris, where are you?
What you feel only matters to you. I do not entertain hypotheticals. The world as it is vexing enough.
Iris, I have a tip for you.
Don't take drugs!
Or Whatever Movies with Wesley and Iris.
What up and welcome to Or Whatever Movies. I'm your co-host Iris and I'm here with my older brother.
Wesley. I don't know. That was actually Scottish.
That was like Sean Connery Scottish. Today we're talking a movie from 2021, Academy Award nominated Best Picture, Belfast. 7
Academy Award nominations, no less. Did you know that Kenneth Brannagh, writer-director Kenneth Brannagh, is the most nominated man for Oscars in multiple categories?
Acting, writing, directing.
Yep. This and that and here and there.
This story pretty contained to a very specific neighborhood with very well choreographed background action. The opening tracking shot where you've got all the kids crisscrossing in this idyllic neighborhood where Catholics and Protestants coexist. You know, very choreographed, very staged. Belfast could have very well been set on a studio lot. It felt very staged to me.
You can tell that the other one was modern Belfast because it was in color. Then we go back in time and it's black and white. It turns out all the studios were booked for some reason. So they built the set of Buddy's street on like a lot or a field or something somewhere.
Right.
Because it's just that one. I mean, and as contained as it is, it also serves to be Buddy's entire world, basically. Mm-hmm. He's at home, he's at school. Sometimes he's robbing liquor stores. But he's... And on the way home, it's you know, with civil unrest in Belfast, it's like, come right home. And that's kind of his world.
Yeah. Buddy's world and Mom's world, or Ma.
Yeah.
Katrina Balfe played Ma. I don't even think she has a name.
Nope.
And...
Ma, Pa, Mom, and Pop, or whatever Grandpa's name is.
Right. Granny and Pop.
Yep.
You know, Ma and Buddy are pretty attached to their home. It's all they know. I get it. But if I was supposed to relate to Ma, if I was supposed to feel her desire to stay in Belfast, I didn't.
Katrina Balfe tends to play this beleaguered wife who is kind of a shadow to the mover shaker dudes in her life. She played Christian Bale's wife in Ford versus Ferrari. And apparently she's in, what is it, Vikings? Or what's the Scottish one? The Highlander nudity one that the Sneak keeps talking about. What's the... Outlander, yeah. From what I can tell, it's just like a bodice ripping kind of like out in the Scottish Highlands or something show. Anyway, but she just kind of hangs out at home and looks sad a lot of the time or concerned either for Buddy or for or Dad or whatever his name is.
Pa.
But you can't go all that far from home, man. Things are brewing. And we get it from Buddy's perspective, who is obviously meant to be Kenneth Brannagh in his youth or whatever. I think he called it biographical fiction, which is a funny term. You know, I mean, I guess in that way it's good because we don't necessarily need to understand exactly what came to be called the Troubles in 1969 because Buddy doesn't exactly understand it. The idea of leaving Belfast to escape the Troubles is horrifying to him, and he pitches a little fit on the floor. You know, all he wants is what he knows.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that makes sense for kids. Like Paloma's like, for my birthday, I only want to go to Palm Springs or Mexico. And I was like, fun, that's because you've only ever been to Palm Springs and Mexico. Like, there's a big wide world out there. We can go anywhere you want. She doesn't know, and you can't blame her for that. And sure, you know, we'll go to Palm Springs. It's probably a little bit more accessible than Mexico. And so I get it. Why Buddy would want to stay home. But for Ma, she seems a little, what's the word? Stolid?
Yeah.
This is her home. This is where everybody knows her. This is where everyone knows her kids. This is a place where she can raise 2 boys virtually on her own because she knows that the entire neighborhood is out to look after them, except for maybe the pigtail girl who just wants to constantly get Buddy in trouble. I'm not sure why she's recruiting Buddy and not Will, but anyway.
I was like, who the hell is this Moira? What is her deal?
I mean, the family's obviously very familiar with her. Like, she comes in for the group hug after the big traumatic hostage scene.
Yeah, she's just a thief and an agitator in the family.
I don't know know she's in the family, in the neighborhood, maybe.
Right? But to the family, she's like the bad influence kid that keeps coming and messing with Buddy.
She's like the mouth that just comes and hangs around.
Right? You got to have the like urchin. And so, but the parents don't seem to have, they don't seem to look down on her or whatever. Obviously, Buddy has to account for his own indiscretions. But still, I can't trust Moira, and I was resistant to her, even as being like an ally who exposes Buddy to all this stuff, because her logic in the robbery is horrible. Like, it's not smash and grab when everybody in the neighborhood knows your name and knows your face and your family.
Yeah, I knew it was doomed the moment they walked in, and she's like, "Hi, Mr. Singh," and then he's like, "Hi, Moira," and I'm like, "Wait a second."
Grab chocolate and run. So dumb.
But what I'm saying about Ma is that she should know better. She should know that there's a broader world and that the situation at home isn't ideal. She should know that it's not a good idea to drag two boys into a riot, into a looting frenzy to return laundry. Like, okay, I get it. You don't want your boys to steal, but can they return the laundry detergent after the looting session is over?
In the middle of it, didn't they walk in amidst people carrying stuff out?
Yes. There's like people breaking windows and throwing Molotov cocktails. I don't know if that's true. And like making, wreaking general havoc. And she's like, let's march right into that and go return this laundry detergent right now. And then why don't I also scold you in the midst of it as well?
Man, old school Irish housewife idealism.
I'm just saying, her judgment, if we want to talk about judgment, Moira's not the only one lacking in this film.
Sure. But, she defends what she knows, and she's scared of, I guess they're holding it down just barely. And Pa has to go off and work in Australia or New York or London or whatever he has to do to send money home, which is very typical, it seems, of this era of Ireland. Belfast mirrors closely Angela's Ashes, but it doesn't seem like a whole lot has changed from Frank McCourt's 1950s to 1969's Kenneth Branagh's experience.
The 1969 experience just feels really dated because of the black and white, but then it's got this weird modern-seeming soundtrack. Like,
Yeah.
Did you find that to be really jarring and kind of off-putting, the soundtrack?
Well, I don't know about off-putting. How can Van Morrison be off-putting musically? Maybe in person. But when it started, I was like, this is totally like a Van Morrison romantic comedy. Where are we going with this? And then it stops. But it turns out, this was, Van Morrison apparently is a Belfast native, which I don't know why I keep saying it. Belfast. He's from Belfast, and he contributed a bunch of his old songs. But, Van Morrison has been around since this time. It's not out of the question that he was popular at this time and was all over the radio as a local boy.
Talk about having a small worldview. I just associated Van Morrison with, like, ultimate Americana.
I don't know that Van Morrison being from Belfast was enough to make it feel at home in this movie. It gave it a tone, for sure, that was unique and distinct, at least from the Ireland that I know, which is all discord and Frank McCourt's Ireland. And Van Morrison wasn't that, which I think gave this movie an air of optimism, even while things were, pretty terrible. It seemed like it was an inevitability that they would shove on, right? Very clear Belfast sucks. Even though we love Belfast, it's our national identity, still eventually we're going to leave, because if Buddy is Kenneth Branagh certainly left. Van Morrison certainly left. I'm guessing that this family is going to leave.
Well, not all families had the opportunity, and it sounded like Pa was pretty well set up. They probably would have been remiss to have not taken that opportunity to give their boys some safety, security, and perhaps a brighter future. I guess I just don't have that same, rootedness. I don't share that with Ma. She was very connected to, attached to her home city. And while I'm only a stone's throw from Torrance, where we grew up, I could really imagine myself just going about anywhere for the right reason.
Yeah, the luxury, I guess, of having money. It's not just money, because I guess this family was better off than some of the other families, but he still had to leave the family. Pa did, and go abroad or go afar to earn money to send back home. And it was tenuous. It wasn't about can we go somewhere else? It was the uncertainty of going somewhere else when this is working, technically for now. You know, we came from Hawthorne, and even though that was our jam, you said Torrance, but still, I remember the first decade of my life being in Hawthorne, and while I'm like, oh, Hawthorne, there's no part of me that's like staunchly defends it in adulthood, because Hawthorne kind of sucks, and that part of Belfast seems to suck.
Hawthorne's up and coming. You know?
It will be, and I'm sure that Belfast is a lovely place, but back in the day for that moment, it wasn't great.
I've been to Ireland, and I think I saw that castle that they featured in some of the aerial B-roll, and I've been working on my Irish now, which sounds kind of like new. Still working on it. Work in progress.
Is this day 1, day 2?
Every time they said new, I would repeat it, hoping that muscle memory it would stick. It's rather like the Australian new, isn't it?
I don't know. Generally, when I try to do accents, it skews into this weird Australian thing, regardless of where it is.
We have to decide by Christmas. We have to decide new. New. I can't do it.
Look, and in that way, I guess I can be thankful that we share Buddy's perspective about Belfast and the happenings and the troubles, as they called it, because it can be a deep dive, and it could be, oh, the country is Protestant and the church is Catholic, and that's the reason that there was war. But it was just like, Riot's bad and Buddy good. We got that clear idea that this is his perspective when Kenneth Brannagh does like a 360 thing swooping around Buddy's head 3 times in a row.
You mean at the point of the invasion of his street?
Yeah. And you're like, we're in Buddy's world, and we're never going to get in the head. We're never going to see the other side, the rioters plotting or...
Yeah, Billy, who's clearly a Protestant. You can tell by his name.
Yeah. By the way, Billy, Clanton, and McLaury, did those names ring in your mind?
Ike Clanton?
Yeah, the Clantons and McLaurys were the antagonists to the Earps and to Doc Holliday in Tombstone, Arizona. And choosing those names, I get that they're Irish names, but those two in conjunction was jarring for me because there's no way that was coincidence. I thought maybe these guys are like holding up those names as like their gang identities or their street names or something. But calling the bad guys Clanton and the McLaury was weird. It was a weird choice.
Can't be coincidence. But it was also set up in the script where Moira's talking about how to identify a Protestant or Catholic and how to bluff gangs in case they approach you and ask about your religion so that you don't get beat up. And she's like, if it's a Billy, it's a Protestant. If it's a Sean, it's a Catholic. And like painting it all black and white.
And he's just as confounded as we are, right? Like, does that stick? I barely even remember that. It's a curious form of exposition when people are explaining like Moira did, or when Pop, what was his name? Whenever elders would say things to Buddy, I was like, ooh, I need this information because culturally speaking, I'm as infantile as Buddy is in understanding what's happening in the world around him. But it seems like the components were threefold in Buddy's life. It was his family, it was the unrest in Ireland, and it was the love story that he had with this girl. And as all, love stories at that age tend to go, he's a little bit misguided in his attempt to succeed to the chair to be next to her, and then ultimately, bypasses her completely and relegates her behind. It's brutal stuff, but it's very basic child understanding of this girl is pretty and I want to be next to her kind of thing. It didn't really stick for me either because I figured him for a goner. I thought he was out of there. Either someone was going to die tragically and he was going to leave, or they were going to leave to avoid someone dying tragically, which is basically what they did. But I think from an adult perspective, it's all about the family dynamic. It's Pa and Ma kind of at odds because they both want the best for their family, but location is what matters. He wants them gone and safe. She wants them there and, as safe as can be. But we paid a lot of attention to the family dynamic, particularly Buddy's grandparents. As evidence, you're like, okay, this is important because we have Kieran Hines, who's a veteran, and Dame Judi Dench. I wrote Dame Judi Dench in all caps, and I was very excited. I didn't expect this. So you know that they're going to play important parts. And indeed, Judi Dench was nominated, as was Kieran Hines. Seems like the grandparents were the only ones nominated for Oscars in this movie for Best Supporting. Judi Dench, by the way, being the second oldest Best Supporting Actress nominee in history, beaten only by your girl Gloria Stewart from Titanic, who was also 87, just a few months older.
Wow.
87.
87 and just slaying it on screen. Jame.
I want to see say the whole thing.
Jame Judi
Dench.
Markerberg had an incredible... Dame Judi Dench she stole the show. She killed it in every scene. It was just edible and lovely.
Life is hard, but finding a really great podcast makes the days go by so much easier. Hi, my name is Blue Telusma. I'm a writer, an emotional intelligence coach, and the host of Humanize with Blue Telusma, a podcast where we believe that when you humanize everyone in the room, a great conversation is almost guaranteed. Join us every week here on Electricast as me and my guest co-hosts unpack big topics and interview even bigger personalities with a sense of humor and a dash of mischief. If you're looking for a new best friend in your head, we've got you covered. Electricast.
And I'm guessing that you might have learned a thing or two from their love story as well. Grammy and Pops have their own thing going on.
Yeah. They have that irascible kind of love thing that's also, funny, and he talks about her behind her back and stuff. But it's obvious. Like, there was no doubt about their love.
Yeah, and I think they teach Buddy and maybe even the audience a little bit about lasting love. I mean, I think what made the Pop and Grammy characters most real to me was when they were talking about how when she was wearing those brown stockings, how it lit him up, and how he couldn't figure out how to get them off because they weren't actually stockings. They were just painted on her legs. He said something to the effect of, like, when you're gray hair, people don't think that you get lit up or that you have feelings or that you remember what it's like to be young. And it just made them fuller characters to me, right? They're not just foils to Buddy. They're not just the loving, doting, stable grandparent characters. Like, they were real people. And I think that served to make their performances really stand out in terms of Oscar nominations.
I mean, was that because they were on the page and they were drawn to that? Or was it because they were Dame Judi Dench and Kieran Hines? I agree, yeah. Which is the point I was trying to make. We spent, while we're in Buddy's head a lot of the time and we're following his passions and this girl and the movies he loves and stuff, it's also very much about the family, in particular, the grandparents that were really, as you said, showcased. Dame Judi Dench, I will watch her in whatever she's in. Like, she could say, take a look at this picture I did. I play a cannibal. It's quite lovely, really. I'd be like, great. Let me get advance tickets. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, she's great. And an interesting pairing with her and Kieran Hines because he's significantly younger than her, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and he worked with your hubby, right?
And Kieran Hines worked with Brian?
Kieran Hines worked with Brian at some point. Brian, knows that dude. And now he's Oscar nominee Kieran Hines. And Brian should call a meeting. He plays a lot of period roles. He has a very, I like his face. But I remember him as Plainview's associate in There Will Be Blood.
Oh, that's right. He was kind of a heavy, too, in that movie, wasn't he?
He didn't actually do anything except run away with the kid when the kid got blown off the oil rig. Spoiler.
Oh,
right. But Eli says, what do you do? And he says, I work with Mr. Plainview.
Like, all ominously?
I'm pretty sure he was the head cracker, though. Yeah.
But a great pair with Dame Judi Dench. He plays old really well. He's got that great moment where he is giving Buddy the space to express how he feels. Remember when Buddy's like, I think Paul wants to leave Belfast? Then he kind of pauses and then he graciously gives Buddy the space. He's like, and what do you want? And he's kind of also playing it a little cautiously. And then Buddy's like, I want to be a superhero. It's just a really great moment. And there's so many great grounded moments. And obviously without Grammy and Pop, there's no part of the family that stays, right? This movie is dedicated to those who left and to those who stayed. And here's two sides of that coin between Grammy and Pop and Ma and Pa.
Dedicated to everybody.
Yep.
Because Pop checked out, that's for sure. He was like, the importance of family and the love of old people. And then he immediately dies.
He's not going anywhere he can't be found.
And something else brings Ma around or whatever. Eventually she understands. I think that it was the death, Kieran Hines' death, that acknowledges that they have to get out of there. That and the guy swearing, the Clanton or whatever, swearing vengeance.
After the hostage scene?
Yes. But eventually she relents. And he gets tackled, and it looked like it was going to be much worse than it was. By the way, that shootout, that was where the music was most incongruent for me. It played weird as Van Morrison goes. And look, this is the first time that Kenneth Branagh, I forget the guy's name, but he had done all of the music for all his other movies. And then all of a sudden it's Van Morrison. So what do you expect?
Yeah, it was weird. I agree.
This kind of stuff happens when you look back using your entire life as perspective, and you look back and make a personal movie about your childhood. It all kind of blends together. And Kenneth Branagh, yes, he remembers the stuff like when he was Buddy's age. He was also infatuated with this girl in school. He went through the troubles or whatever, and also loved movies. So he had to put that in there and had a few movies, none of which are really near and dear to my heart, although I did get spoiled like crazy for Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which I still haven't seen all the way through. Come at me, bro.
Well, he's always watching movies. He's watching John Wayne Westerns. They're exposed to, American culture and given a sense of a broader world through the movies that they watch. Maybe it's also a little bit of an escapism, especially if Ma's keeping them holed up in the house so that they don't get into trouble out in the wide, dangerous world of Belfast.
The movies as escapism is an interesting concept because that's what maybe that's the excuse. Hey, I want to make movies and I can't do that in Belfast or in London. Guess I got to go to Hollywood and also leave the troubles behind me.
I mean, it's a lot to put a film, let alone a biographical narrative, on the shoulders of a 6-year-old, 7-year-old actor.
Yeah, and as most of these actors of this type, the directors and the stars, they're very protective of him. He is the linchpin, and they praise him. Oh, Kenneth Branagh, you're just amazing in everything you've done. Oh, thank you so much. And this young boy, Jude Hill, was amazing to work with, and I think he has a lot of potential. And it seems you always come back because people can overlook these kids on which so much rests, on whom so much rests. As far as the movie goes. But Buddy was young enough so that he can just be wide-eyed and he could scream and throw a tantrum and he can look afraid when his mom reprimands him or drags him by the ear back to the store. And he was fine.
He was a good, wide-eyed, cute kid. It's kind of crazy to see him sitting on a couch between Judi Dench and Kieran Hines. Like these heavy weights.
Like he's so young, though, I don't even think he understands how momentous that is.
To be just acting in a scene sitting between the two of them.
Right, that he's with on-screen royalty. And I wonder if he understood the gravity of that. Are dames royalty?
Well,
they're royally distinguished.
Yeah. I mean, isn't it kind of like being knighted?
Yeah, which is also not royalty. I didn't mind Buddy's story. His wonder years or whatever tracked fine for me. I may not have been emotionally invested in him getting the girl, but I thought it was cute. I could certainly understand the sentiment of looking at someone who you think is out of their league and trying your best to kind of enter into that league. I feel like it was all for naught because with the sad death of Grandpa, they were going to head out of there anyway, and I don't know why that was one of the catalysts. It still seems like it was.
We got Buddy's coming of age story. We've got our family drama on the backdrop of troubles or civil unrest or civil war. It's a very interesting time to be coming of age and to navigate what it means to be a family and to make the hard decisions on keeping a family together. We got the Kenneth Branagh layer, and we know that this is a story that's very personal to him. So we got all that. And then what? I'm still kind of left with a little bit of a so what? And is that just indicative of my kind of removal from this particular experience? Even if I am removed, shouldn't this be my entree into it, my insight into it? And it can still be immersive even if it's very foreign to me.
Well, there were the universal themes of love and family. I was like, that was the moment, dude. You should have kissed the girl, buddy. That was your chance. That was your Love Actually moment before you literally leave the country or whatever. Ma and Pa and all that stuff. It was sad when Grandpa went down, but I couldn't relate to some of the stuff. I get that it's tragic and that it's hard that you have to ship out hopefully for greener pastures, but for God's sake, take grandma along. I don't understand it. And so the disconnect, I think, is unavoidable. This is Kenneth Branagh's Roma, right? Albeit with a slightly rosier tint because of the Van Morrison soundtrack. But Roma was intensely personal for Alfonso Cuarón. And I was like, okay, so there's unrest here too. And it's really, this is what you went through as a child? Crazy. And it was also very much about love and about family. And it was very personal. And all those things are great. And frankly, the Academy responds to stuff like that. But I don't remember Roma as tapping into my childhood or my psyche or feelings or emotions. And I think Belfast is the same way. Can I critically regard Roma as an interesting little movie from an otherwise big-time director, which I guess Kenneth Branagh inarguably is. He's done all kinds of stuff and widely nominated and stuff. This is his little personal movie, his Roma, and that's fine. I can't begrudge him, but I don't know if the connection was there like he wanted it to be for us all. It's all subjective. I can relate to some of the things, but we are on the outside trying to connect ourselves to it emotionally, to understand the significance, not just the relevance or the cinematic quality of it. And in that respect, Belfast isn't bad. I just don't know that it resonates as intensely personally as with anyone except for Kenneth Branagh.
Which I guess you can't blame him for that. I'm not really sure what my hang up is about Belfast.
I love movies. I can't say I love little girls, but you understand. When I was a little boy, I loved little girls and movies and, I guess family or whatever. It just...
And like running around on the streets?
Yeah, 100%. And stealing stuff. Not so blatantly or so obviously or so poorly. But yeah.
I don't know. You had your fair share of stealing stuff poorly.
That's for sure. But it wasn't so brazen as to walk into a store showing my face.
Well, you'd go in like bandana? That's how you get shot, homie.
No, it was mostly like sneaking into garages in the middle of night and stealing people's soda or telephones or something.
It's like Franco level, like I'm going to break into your house and just drink all your juice drinks.
Yep, a reference that nobody will get except for you and me and Lance Fisher. But you agree, they should have taken Grandma, right? She doesn't eat that much. She can darn socks. It's not like she's going to cause trouble. Why would they leave Grandma behind?
Of course they should take Grandma. She didn't want to go. This was her home. This is what she knew. She was too old to start over. In fact, I'm not really sure why they didn't. Maybe it was because she had to deliver that awesome line as they drove away in the bus.
Yeah, great. And then they should have backed the bus up and ran and grabbed her monkey trouble style and hauled her on the bus.
You know what? That might have pushed Belfast over the edge for me. Because as it stands... I'm thinking this is kind of teetering into boring territory.
Really? I mean, it took a while for you to be able to get your head around it. I watched it and was fine with it. It's an all right movie. I love watching a lot of these performers. It was great. It wasn't bad.
One parting question. Why were the bathrooms outside?
That's just the way it is, man. Indoor plumbing was not a thing. It's the same thing happened in Angela's Ashes, the way the slums were created. And I don't know that this is a slum necessarily, but many people shared a bathroom. That was typical. And I think the poorer you are, the closer you are in proximity to said bathroom. In the case of the McCourts in 1950s Ireland, they were right next to it. It was outside the door and they had problems with flies.
But otherwise, nothing wrong with an outdoor bathroom, unless you're on an airplane.
Yeah, if you have a penis and you don't have to touch a whole lot of that bathroom, kind of any bathroom is okay. But I wouldn't wish it on Grandma or anybody.
So I didn't relate to Ma and her desire to stay in Belfast. I thought it was impractical. But more importantly, I don't think that Ma's steadfastness was justified. I didn't get enough of her broader community in Belfast to suggest to me that this was so important to her. And maybe that wasn't necessarily the burden of the filmmaker. Kenneth Branaugh had other things to deal with, especially with regards to Buddy's story. And so it's not his fault that I'm looking to Ma to connect with this film. But I feel like her connection and her desire to stay could have been more justified. And that's not necessarily the reason that I will officially give Belfast a boring. I mean, I feel like I should hedge and give it a good just because it's been nominated for so many Oscars. But it wasn't it wasn't the film for me.
Belfast is boring, but Dame Judi Dench is amazing and well deserving of her late in life Oscar that she will win, right?
This could just tip the other direction because of Jim Judi Bench. Because of Jim Judi Bench, and lighten up the screen. Can I give it a good boring?
No, give the movie a boring. Give her a good. Give Kieran Hines a good.
Yeah.
We're the SAG Awards. We're now rating the performances.
So that's our review on Belfast, 7-time Oscar-nominated film. Let's see how Belfast performs at the awards. But in the meantime, we'd love to know what you think. 818-835-0473 is our phone number, or whatevermovies@gmail.com is our email address. Subscribe to our podcast if you enjoy listening to it. And thank you for listening to this review on Belfast. We'll see you next time.
Electricast. Welcome to the Candle Power Hour. Come with us backstage behind the scenes of show business spanning over 4 decades and bringing you the experiences that can only be told by the people who were there.
Our guests are from the A-list, the F-list, and everyone in between. Get set for some of the most insane, hilarious, and inspiring stories you will ever hear.
I'm Mercury.
And I'm Diego.
Your hosts for the Candle Power Hour.
If you're a working professional wondering what's next for your career, you've come to the right place. Whether you're looking for a promotion, growth, or a potential career transition, look no further. With over 30 years working in a variety of industries, I share my insider knowledge with those ready to get ahead on Career Advancement with Craig Ansell. Tune in to get your strategies for success.